We've all been there. You make a decision, it goes completely sideways, and your first thought is, wow, that was a terrible decision. But what if it wasn't? What if the way we judge our choices is actually completely backwards? Today, we're going to dig into one of the biggest traps in business, and honestly in life, judging a decision purely by its outcome.
So let's just put the question out there. If something goes wrong, was it a bad decision? It seems so obvious, doesn't it? A bad result has to come from a bad choice. But what we're about to see is that the real story is so much more interesting, and frankly, a lot more useful.
Okay, so let's break this down. At the core of any decision, you've really got two different things going on. You've got the process, the thinking, the research, the logic you use to make the call. And then you've got the outcome, what actually happened. Now, where it gets really fascinating is when a brilliant, super well thought out process leads to an absolute disaster of an outcome. How in the world do you judge that? Let's unpack this with a killer case study. I want you to travel back with me to 2014. Amazon, the absolute giant of e-commerce, decides it's going to jump into the brutal, hyper-competitive smartphone market. And on paper, it looked like a total stroke of genius, a move that could really shake things up. This was the story of the Amazon Fire Phone. So what did their process actually look like? Well, according to our source for this, The Business Gambit, it was basically a textbook example of how to do innovation right. I mean, they didn't just wing it. They did exhaustive market research. They literally poached top-tier engineering talent from their biggest competitors, Apple and Google. And maybe most importantly, they found real customer pain points they thought they could solve. By every single metric, the process was rock solid. And what happened? It was a flop. A spectacular, undeniable $170 million flop. The features that seemed so cool on paper just felt like gimmicks in real life. The shopping integration came across as pushy. It completely tanked. Amazon just burned through a mountain of cash before they finally pulled the plug. It was an absolutely terrible outcome. But here is where the story takes a turn. Jeff Bezos didn't punish the team. He didn't start firing executives. No, he actually celebrated the process that led to the phone. See, he understood this incredibly important thing. If you only reward good outcomes, people will get scared. They'll stop taking the smart, calculated risks that are the only path to real, game-changing innovation. This quote just captures that mindset perfectly. And this brings us right to our next big idea here, focusing on the process over the prize. To really get why the how matters so much more than the what, it really helps to look at what happens when a company gets this totally wrong. So let's look at a different example for a second. Remember Yahoo? Come on, in the late 90s, they were the undisputed kings of the internet. But as the Business Gambit points out, the process was fundamentally flawed. They were driven by features, not by a vision. They just kept adding stuff on, email, news, shopping, without any clear idea of where it was all going. It was just a bunch of disconnected tactics. Now compare that to Amazon. Even though the Fire Phone tactic failed, and failed big time, it was still part of a much larger, coherent vision for a totally interconnected world. And this brings us right back to the Fire Phone for the big reveal. Because that $170 million failure, well, it wasn't the end of the story at all. In fact, it was just the beginning of something much, much bigger. Just look at how this connects. The Fire Phone team had spent years developing custom hardware, they'd wrestled with voice commands, they were building out all this AI integration, and when the phone itself died, all that knowledge didn't just vanish. All those painful lessons, all that incredible tech, it was channeled directly into a secret project that would become the Amazon Echo, powered by Alexa. So it looked like this catastrophic, embarrassing loss was actually the tuition fee Amazon paid to learn how to dominate the next wave of computing. The very same failure that all the critics were mocking became the bedrock, the foundation for a product that put Amazon into millions of homes and basically created a brand new market from scratch. So what's the big takeaway for us in all this? This isn't just a fun story about a giant tech company. It's really about a powerful mental model that every one of us can use in our own work, in our own lives, to make better decisions when the future is totally uncertain. This is the idea you've got to hold on to: process-driven decision-making. It just means you judge a choice based on the quality of your thinking at the time you made it, with the information you had available. Look, the world is a random place. Outcomes are never, ever guaranteed. But a good process tilts the odds in your favor again and again over the long haul. So, I'm going to leave you with this question to chew on. Instead of looking at your bad outcomes as just straight-up failures, what if you saw them as tuition?
What are the crucial lessons hiding inside your most spectacular flops? Because reframing that question, well, that might just be the thing that unlocks your next big breakthrough.